Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bankroll Burners, the poker podcast for players who can't stop getting it in bad. I'm Mike,
And I'm Josh.
and we are here, as always, to bring you some hands that we have played recently, to talk through them in real time with each other, and talk about how badly we played and how we could have done better. And maybe we'll learn something along the way.
I mean, if it hasn't happened yet, not sure when it will.
Yeah, so I understand you've had a rough week, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I played a long session. I was out quite late. Friday night session table was pretty solid. Very swingy session. There were guys making weird pre-flop plays. I tried to play pretty aggressive pre-flop, and people actually started playing back, which doesn't happen a lot in these 1-3 games.
That is
And
unusual.
so I was forced to fold a couple. There's like I put in a 4 bet over like a min 3 bet, and then got jammed on for like 300 big blinds. Like it was a weird couple really weird spots that I found myself in, and then wound up just at the end getting crushed by a couple coolers. So the downswing continues for me, but feel like I actually played quite well, better than I have recently, which isn't saying a whole lot, but it's saying something.
Well, you know what they say, it's not the money you win or lose, it's how you feel. So
Well, that is, yeah, exactly. Who cares about cold hard statistics when you can instead care about your feelings?
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Because you ran badly, I of course ran quite well this week. I did have the biggest win of my life and the largest pot of my life. I did win a $2,900 pot, so that was pretty interesting. But it was all pre-flop, so it's not really. It was just some coolery type situations, I guess. But what are you gonna do? Sometimes that's how you got to get the money in good.
Although from the descriptions you gave me, I'm not convinced it was even a coolery situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't really know what the guy was.
When you have queens and the board runs out with a king and a jack and like possible straights and
And you
just
still lose.
and
I
you
don't really
win,
know.
then
I guess he had tens. I don't know, but yeah,
yeah. So things like that. So I'm glad, super happy that you came away with a huge win. It's nice to build up, and I'm just gonna keep at it and keep playing aggressive, keep making plays, and eventually my queen I will have queens when my opponent doesn't have aces.
exactly. So, all right, but let's get into some interesting hands that don't involve pre-flop. I have one from that session, which I really thought immediately after the hand, I was like, oh my god, like what the heck, So this is a really interesting one. So the villain in this hand, a little background, is not very good. Um, he is a showdown. What I've heard affectionately referred to as a showdown monkey. I check back like top two, check back trips. Just absolutely wants to see showdowns. And he had been running super hot, so he had quite a bit of cash in front of me. He covered me.
Is he
But
is it, when you say showdown monkey, is he kind of also the very like loose type of showdown monkey who thinks like, oh, I have like third pair, I've got a call here and like see my opponent's cards, or are more just the
no,
passive?
I didn't get the feeling he was very call happy. Actually, no, I don't think so. I mean, he was very passive pre-flop, but I didn't see him make any like hero calls or something. I didn't see him
Sure.
like showing down a lot of trash hands or stuff like that. So,
Okay.
so he was up quite a bit. We're 850 effective in this hand, so he covers me, and we're six-handed as well. And this is 2-5 best bet Orange Park 500 cap, and basically. So the straddle had been on pretty intermittently in this game, like I would say maybe 30% of hands. And in a six-handed game, of course, the hijack is second to act, or excuse me, is second to act. Yeah. So the low jack folds and the hijack makes it 10, which I was like, come on, man. But whatever. So the hijack makes it 10. That guy he's kind of like a very ABC sort of player.
So no straddle on. That's what I'm
No
understanding.
straddle. So it's just straight 2-5.
Yep.
Low jack folds, hijack makes it 10. The button calls, who is the main villain in this hand, who we are 850 effective with, and then also the small blind calls.
Okay.
So we currently have 3 players in front of us, and I'm in the big blind. I have 5-6, of diamonds, and I make it $50.
Okay. I think you can definitely go either way here. I think calling and seeing, this is a fine hand in the big blind to call. Like, you don't need to call. I mean, you're basically getting 1,000,000 to 1, so it can't be bad.
I would never ever fold this, obviously, to a
But people are also definitely showing a lot of weakness with like a min open and 2 flats, so I probably can't go wrong trying to take down some dead money.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think there's a reasonable case to be made that I should have just called because of the way the table I've been playing. It was so call happy pre-flop. Like, I was racing 50, 60, whatever, it didn't matter. I would get call every time. So I think it's probably might be slightly better at a table like that to just call here, but you can't be terrible to make this raise.
Yeah, I did just see a very relevant tweet. I don't remember who tweeted it, but they basically, I believe they said, quote, the fold to 3-bet percentage in Florida is hovering around 2%.
That's correct. Yeah.
So when that's the case, I think it's fine to just really polarize your 3-bet range and like tighten it up quite a lot. But it's still fine to. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with making 3-bets with like suited connectors, even if you do get called a lot, just to kind of keep your range a little bit wider and not kind of really restrict yourself to like hitting certain boards.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I'm fine with how I play this. I just think maybe I should have can call a little bit more often than normal here.
Yeah.
But all right. So this part of the hand is pretty standard. And then the hijack, the min opener then folds. The button calls and the small blind calls.
Okay, so we got 2 callers. It looks like cool.
Yep. So we're like 160 in the pot or so.
Cool. Okay.
And the flop comes deuce of diamonds, 3 of clubs, 5 of spades. So we do make top pair with a backdoor flush draw and a gut shot.
Yeah, and of course the gut shot, I mean, it's not the greatest gut shot in the world, because it does put a one-liner out there, but also it maybe lets us get value from an ace if a 4 were to come.
Definitely. I actually like this particular gutter. I mean, yeah, I'll occasionally get coolered by 6-7, I suppose, but I actually do like this. This is a nice draw, I think.
Yeah, pretty good board for this hand.
Yeah, I think so. It's multi-way. Of course, the small blind checks to me, and it's multi-way. I think you could go either way with a better check here. I think I decided to bet for protection. I think I could go with a check call, maybe look to check raise some turns depending on how things go. Depending on, but I don't know. I like to bet for protection here. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think it's fine. I think it is definitely table dependent because we really hate to get raised here. Because like there are obviously like a ton of pairs in both players' ranges, like anywhere from 6s to 10s. And that kind of makes me think like, well, these like it especially at a sort of this type of live game, we've definitely talked a lot about how people just like go like make these random raises with overpairs, even when they really shouldn't, because like you still have a range advantage. You have so many better hands than like 7s here, so yeah. Like their raises really only fold out worse. But either way, we do have a ton of equity with this hand, and I think check calling probably makes more sense multi-way, just because there's so many better hands in people's ranges, and we kind of want to realize our equity and not get blown off it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Getting raised here sucks. Like, we probably have to call, but it's going to feel really crappy.
Right.
So I think you're right that, putting this into a check call range is probably fine. Although it will make it harder. And, overcards are almost definitely coming out. Actually, definitely are coming out, unless we make a straight, of course. So it's going to make it, if it checks through, it's going to be really hard to sort of know where we're at in the hand on future streets, which is one reason I do like betting, to sort of define players' ranges a little bit.
Yep. I don't mind betting either,
but I want to fold out, random overcards that are, that I have, so I don't have to be concerned about them on later streets is more what I'm talking about. So I could even go smaller here, maybe 40. But anyway, I did bet 50. So, and the button calls and the small blind calls. So we do get called in both spots.
So we do it, and that doesn't feel great.
No.
But,
I think I have the best hand a lot still, honestly.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I would prefer it if only one. Now,
Of course, yeah. I mean, I agree. I do think we have the best hand a lot still. There are like, a lot of like 4x, like 5-4, pocket fours. I guess that's probably, hopefully, it. But then there's over pairs.
We're getting called. This is a loose passive table. We're getting called by ace high here a lot because there's so many. There's a gutter. They have a gutter. Yeah. So I think we're getting called by lots of random ace high. So.
Okay.
Anyway, another bit of info about the button, by the way, and this is actually very relevant. This guy, I had recently bluffed him in a large pot, and he was tilted about this.
Great.
So this is relevant.
And so he might call you down with like any two cards.
Yeah. So this is I think it's a relevant piece of information. So he was like mumbling about the hand for quite a while after the bluff. So, all right. So the turn now is the Queen of Hearts.
Okay. I mean, it's not a horrible card, honestly.
No, I mean, how much Queen X do they have? Like, I don't know. I thought it was fine, but I also don't really think that like we will continue to get value from much worse. So I elected the small blind, of course, checks, and I elected to check here as well. What do you think of that?
I think it's fine to check when the overcard comes out. I think you're right. We're probably getting like one more street of value max. I don't hate trying to get that street of value here. I mean, we can kind of continue to like continue to sort of evaluate, because there's a chance that, we can kind of get a read from one of these players that they might have one of those like pairs that are better than us, and like we don't have we can like it gives us the option to like turn our hand into a bluff on the river if we sort of if we pick up that like read.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of betting and then when called thinking. I don't like the idea of betting for value and then when called thinking we're no good.
Right. That's fair too. No, I just I don't know what like folding out ace highs isn't terrible either. Like unless you think they're gonna call the river when they miss, but because it's like we're not gonna get any value from them on the river most likely.
Right. That's true.
But maybe we just check both streets and don't try to get more value because we have like kind of a weak hand.
I was also looking to maybe do a bit of bluff catching versus tilted villain is what I was thinking in real time.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that's interesting. Even if he's tilted, the sort of showdown monkey type of player might not be bluffing at the proper frequency. But I honestly don't even mind, like, if it goes check, 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 we probably win. And we're probably not getting value from the hands that we're beating a whole lot.
And you're right. Like, he probably isn't bluffing enough, given that he is a showdown monkey. So you're probably. I mean, I don't know. I think you could probably bet small here or check. I don't know, but I checked.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fine.
And Button now bets half pot. He bets 175.
It's a little bigger than half pot.
But chunky bet for a player from a player of that sort.
Yeah.
Small blind gets out of the way. And I think we have a square call here.
Yeah, we still have a decent amount of equity. Villain could be making a tilt bluff. So I think that totally makes sense. So let's see, we had 350 to the pot, so we're looking at a pot of about 660. And we've only got like 575 behind now, so we got about basically a little under a pot size bet left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the river now is a 5 of hearts.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, we make trips.
Gin card.
Yeah. Do we ever lead here? Versus Showdown Monkey?
What? How much are you leading here if you do? I mean, are you leading for a jam? Are you leading for like a half pot?
I would lead for probably a third pot.
So you lead for 200. I mean, so you basically think, I mean, you're pretty much thinking we have the best hand here 100% of the time.
No, I wasn't thinking that in real time. Which you don't have to be thinking that in real time. I think you could still lead to get called by worse because this player is likely to check back.
That's fair. But I think we can never fold to a jam if we lead. Like, if we lead for like 220, like, and he jams, like, we have to call like 300 to win like 1,000 or like 1,100. Like, that's just, it's like the odds we're getting are so insane when honestly he could have like a queen.
Sure.
Like the way we played the hand.
A queen?
Probably not, but maybe.
A showdown monkey villain, especially one who's like mad at me and just wants to take my money. I feel like he's just going to snap it off with a queen.
So do you think we can bet fold here?
No. Oh God, I don't know. Maybe. I guess what does he have with 4-6? Like if he has the straight, or I feel like he never has.
Maybe ace 4 is probably more likely than 4-6.
Yeah, ace 4. I don't know.
So that's kind of the one consideration I'd make about leading is he may. I don't know how aware this villain is in terms of sort of strategy, obviously, because I think being a showdown monkey doesn't necessarily preclude you from understanding a bit more strategy, where he may and even he may think, wow, this lead is super weak, why is he leading here? Doesn't make sense. I'm just gonna jam, and then you're just I am a little worried about that. And I don't know. I mean, he may just continue to bet with his bluffs. Is the other consideration, that if we want to get money from his bluffs, if you kind of have that thought that he's going to be bluffing a lot on the turn and going to continue to do so, or even if he's not going to continue to do so, I mean, we're definitely way more likely to make money if we check and we think he has a lot of bluffs in his range.
Or you could also bet a queen.
Yeah, you could definitely value bet worse.
Yeah, I think a check here is warranted on it, after talking it through there.
But I don't hate leading either for the reasons that you've suggested. I mean, he might still give us a crying call with a pair.
Yeah, 10s.
Yeah,
9s. Anyway, I check, and he pretty quickly bets 350.
Okay, that's 350.
Yeah. And my question is, am I supposed to jam?
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, so we can think, I mean, what do you think he's taking this line with? I think his value hands that beat us are basically 2s, 3s, and ace 4.
Yeah.
I mean, this type of villain probably isn't opening 4-6 a whole lot.
He didn't open.
Okay. Well, he's probably not calling it.
Double-flatted. He double-flatted.
Is he double-flatting with 4-6 a lot?
Probably.
Okay. So 4-6 suited. 4-6 suited.
4-6 suited. Yeah.
So then there are a lot of value combos, but there's also a lot of queens.
Right. There's and is a queen gonna call? Probably. Given the size he made it, I feel like he has to call with a queen at that point.
Yeah, I'd agree. He can also have some amount of 5s, but they're a good amount of combos of 5s.
But I don't think he bets so large on the turn with a 5.
That's true. I mean, it could be sort of a second pair bet to see where he's at, but it is a large bet.
It's pretty large for that. I don't know. Based on the sizing, I thought it was pretty improbable he had a 5.
This is really interesting because another sort of live tell I feel like I've read, when people kind of bet large but not all in and leaving yourself a lot behind, is typically a sign of strength. But at the same time, we do have a very strong hand. I mean, and I don't know if we're beating his
folding. Obviously, I'm never folding.
I just don't know if we're ahead of 50%, 50% of his calling range. If he's betting, maybe, and if he's bluffing, then he's not calling a jam even for that price. So I don't know. I think I just like calling here, but maybe because we have a 6, we're supposed to be jamming because we block 6-4. So
block one combo of 6-4 suited, sure. Yeah. I don't know how relevant that is, but I think if we have 5-4, maybe that case is stronger because then we're blocking all of the straights. But anyway, I did just call, and I immediately regretted. I was like, I don't know, maybe should I jammed. Anyway, he mucks and says he claims he had queen 4. So
wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a spot where I really am in the dark. I don't really know, what he's. It's just tough because I don't really know what he's betting with. It's really interesting where all these dynamics of him being kind of tight but also kind of tilted, and maybe he's betting a wider range and he just has a bunch of random queens because he wants to play more pots with you, or maybe he's a lot stronger because he's well, now I'm definitely going to take his money. It's kind of, I think kind of understanding that dynamic and then evaluating, how to best, that kind of helps with figuring out how to approach the situation, I think.
Yeah, and I just hadn't didn't know him well enough, I guess, to figure that out. But I mean, ultimately, I called. I think if I had gone all in, he would have called.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think for sure if he actually had any sort of queen, I think he would definitely call.
Yeah.
So
I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
It was definitely an interesting one. I don't know. I think like I'm trying to go as thin as possible for value lately, and like I'm really trying to work on that. And so I think given that, I should have jammed. If you're never value owning yourself, you're not going thin enough. So.
Yeah, well, that's true, and it's real. So I think maybe then jam does make sense. Like I'm probably on board with the jam. Like it's just not for that much more. Also, we do want to make the max,
right?
And like if he has a super strong hand, fine. But I do think there's enough. Like the more I think about it, like he probably just is trying to own you with like a queen and is just never folding to you. So based on that, I'm probably more on board with jamming.
Yeah. All right. So next hand.
I'm playing 1-3 at Encore Boston Harbor, which continues its slide down the ladder of poker rooms as they've started charging for drinks, which is like ridiculous.
Well, I mean that's the way it is here. I don't know.
Well, I know, but most casinos, I feel like give you free drinks for playing. And it might also just be in the poker room, so I could probably go downstairs to like the casino floor, get a drink, and come back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty lame. Like the rate there is so high. Like what the heck?
Yep. I mean, they have removed the jackpots, so they've removed the extra like $1 to $2 of promo rake, which is nice.
They also removed the promos.
Yeah, there's still a bad beat going, but people think once that gets hit, that's going to be it. So. Anyway, the room is just kind of like, I don't know. It's still a good room. The action's good, but like the rake is so high. The New Hampshire card rooms, I'm going to have to check out Chasers soon and just see how the action is there. Because the action was great at Boston Billiards, as I talked about last week. The action was great. It was just kind of empty. But anyway, any other people, any listeners who play around New England? I know many of you have mentioned, I know at least one of you has mentioned the Brook. If anyone's got any other tips on the hottest places to play, hit me up. Anyway, in this hand, we are playing a full 8-handed game, and action is going to start in the hijack, who opens it up to 10. The hijack is, I wouldn't call him necessarily like a great player, but he's definitely like above average. Like He's opening most of the pots he's involved in. He's not open. He's never open limping.
That's
he's occasionally
way above average. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a pro.
I think he's probably more on the looser side of things, a little more loose aggressive, playing for fun. But I have been watching him, and he is like opening a fair share of pots, but he is opening, so that's something. The cutoff is going to call the $10. And I look down at a great hand on the button. Ace of spades, ace of diamonds.
That's a nice hand.
I mean, it's the best hand, right?
Among the best, yeah.
It's one of the 6 best. So we make it 40, which I think is pretty standard.
You make it... Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we make it 40, 3x plus the caller. And both players call.
Nice.
And we started this hand about 475 effective. I've got 475. The villain in this hand is that hijack decent player who had just won a monster pot that I texted you about, where he had aces on an ace jack 10 jack 10 10 X board. He had aces against ace 10 and king queen. Ugh. Which is just like a gross, brutal cooler. So he just like covered me because he obviously stacked both of those players.
Yeah, I mean, and just to note, like with aces, people say like I've heard people make the comment that they really do like to trap with aces so they can get as many players in the pot as possible. And I just want to say that aces is one of the few hands where you actually are happy to have more than one opponent, but it's exactly 2. Once you get beyond 2 opponents, you still have less than 50% equity with yours.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's nice with aces that like you never really need to protect against overcards.
Right, yeah.
Which is like compared to every other hand you do often. I mean, that's the nice part about ace king too, I guess. But anyway, so both players call, so we are going 3 ways here to a flop. The flop is going to come out. It's actually quite similar to your hand. It's going to come out 2 of spades, 3 of diamonds, 4 of spades. So 4-3 deuce, 2 spades. We do have the ace of spades. So we flop an overpair and a gut shot, and it checks to me.
Sort of sad that you're blocking the gutters that will call you.
Yeah, I mean there could be some fives, there could be some sixes, certainly some amount of pairs from both of these players.
Sure.
So what do you like here? Are you on board with sort of a small c bet? Do you like sizing up, given the sort of low board?
I'm gonna bet small c bet. I mean, maybe like if you're playing against somebody, some really strong villains, and given that you have the ace of spades, maybe this is actually taken as a check. But given that we're playing 1-3, I'm definitely putting money in this pot. I'm gonna bet probably $40.
Okay, I was sort of thinking, this is a very connected board. I was sort of on board with betting larger. Also, given the board is so small, there are like probably a few more hands that might call me, even with sort of a larger sizing. Any sort of pocket pair is going to call me here. Any like 4, probably like any 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If you think that like the exact same range of hands will defend you regardless of your size, then you're supposed to go larger.
Right.
The question is like are you getting floats from like King Jack with a spade, King Queen with a spade here if you go small versus you're not if you go large?
I don't know if either player. I don't really know if either player is defending King Jack or King Queen with a spade here, regardless.
Okay, so then I think I like larger sizing then. Yeah.
Although I guess I don't know. I will say.
What?
I don't know, and but I don't know if those hands are floating. I guess maybe they would to a smaller bet. So maybe it does just make sense, and maybe there's something to be said about having the ace of spades and thinking maybe we should go smaller with the ace of spades and larger without.
Definitely. I think if you're going to bet this board, without, and you have aces without the ace of spades, I think you should go very large.
Yeah, but maybe having that additional equity and ability to re-get there means we don't have to go as big.
Well, it's just like you're blocking, the nut flush draw.
Right.
Is more so what it, no one can have it. But I mean, at the end of the day, well, I don't know. I actually do wonder if these guys are folding 6s and 7s, and 8s, just like to it because you 3-bet pre-flop. I wonder if they're going to be over foldy.
Well, I've been 3-betting quite a bit, I would say, and as I said, people have kind of been playing back, so I think they're both aware that I've been pretty active and aggressive. So I don't think they necessarily are giving me credit for aces, kings, etc.
All right, well then, yeah, large sizing seems fine.
But interesting points, and maybe the spade means I should bet small, but I don't. I bet 80.
Okay.
Which is about 2/3 pot, and only the hijack, who is the original raiser, calls.
Cool.
So it adds 160, and
he can have anything from like at this point, 5s through queens. I guess he could have a flush draw probably. That's probably it.
Yeah. Well, the turn comes the most dynamic possible card, which is the 5 of spades. Which I think is a really interesting card, as I now have the bottom end of the straight and the nut flush draw.
Yeah. Wow.
And he checks.
Huh.
And I think, my thinking at the time is like, well, I made a straight. I have the ace of spades. I should probably bet here. Try and get one more street of value here. But maybe not. I don't really know. This was the spot where I was super confused in.
Yeah, so you guys have put in... So the board is deuce of spades, 3 of...
3 of red.
3 of diamonds, 4 of spades, 5 of spades. You have aces with the ace of spades.
Yep, there's 280 in the pot, and we got about 350 left behind.
Okay. I mean, I don't really want to play for stacks right now, actually, I think. Because there's a decent... I mean, he can have some better straights here. Like, I don't think it's... I guess it's... we didn't really... I didn't mention it on the previous street, but I do think it's possible he calls you with, like, a better gutter. Especially if he's a more kind of active player and he has some of those suited connector-y type hands.
Yeah, like 6-7.
Yeah. Or, like, any 6 here. He could have, king... If he has king 6 suited, that's a gutter on the flop. So, I don't know. I'm a little interested in doing a bit of pot control here and then just never folding river. The flip side, of course, here, like, yeah, I don't know if I really want to even, like, build a pot. like in case we make our flush, because then if we don't make our flush, we're like, where are we at?
Well,
So,
it's kind of interesting because it's like if we don't make a flush and we check back, and the villain like jams river on a brick, like are we supposed to call when he like overbet jams? Like probably with like our specific hand with a spade, but like I don't know that I want to put myself in that position where definitely something in live poker, as you've pointed out, is like trying to go thinner for value and calling less.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. First of all, I think if on the river, if he jams, like having a spade is definitely bad for us if it's a brick, right? Or no, I'm sorry, because it's the 5 of spades. So
yeah, so the flush is already in.
Just blocking the flush. I mean, I don't know. I think if we bet here, then he'll jam almost certainly. If he has a strong hand or a bluff, he'll be like, we have a strong chance of getting raised on this board, and it's really gonna suck, I guess. Or like, I mean, we could go small to try to get a bit of value here, and then evaluate river. Like,
yeah, and I was kind of thinking too that if I bet here and didn't get raised, then I can and he doesn't, then I can just like check back non-spade rivers. Like,
interesting.
And kind of do my pot controlling there, but probably is a little dangerous, because getting raised, like we probably have to call even if we bet small, just given the stack sizes, like,
and the fact that we're blocking the nuts.
We're blocking the nuts, like we have outs even if we're behind.
But I don't know that I like getting ourselves into that situation.
Right.
I kind of like a check here. I think we can go for value on a lot of rivers.
Yeah.
I do think we will have trouble getting paid on spade rivers if he himself does not have a spade.
Right.
So that's the one downside. That's the biggest downside of checking back. But I mean, that's less probable than a non-spade river. And I think we can get value from a lot of hands on a non-spade river that have, like, if he has a showdown value hand now, I don't think, and we check it back and he checks to us on the river, I'm pretty sure he'll call a smallish bet, which is what you're going to make on the turn anyway. So.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, because I think he can have a lot of sets here. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, like if you were in his position and I checked back the turn, would you be jamming river with sets? Like how would you be playing a set on a brick river? Check call, because like I feel like if it's such a weird, this is why it was such a weird spot. This is all the stuff that was going through my head. I was like, I feel like he can very easily have a set here. Like I'm not getting a whole lot of value from a lot of other hands. So
he probably is betting rather large on the river with a set. I don't know if he's jamming.
Yeah, and that puts me in a gross spot too, because like there are still a lot of hands that also beat me, as you say. So it's.
But I mean, I think it's just a snap call at that point. I think if he bets anything reasonable on the river that isn't an overbet jam, like you have the easiest call in the world, unless the river changes something significantly. But I don't know. I kind of feel like you are not like. Yes, if you are against specifically a set, you could, and you betting this street is probably the only way you're going to get stacks in. But I just don't know if I want to get stacks in. Like I'm a little apprehensive about that. I don't know that we're going to be good often enough, and I don't know. So.
Yeah, it was just very interesting because I was thinking, I don't really want to just like call off river, because I feel like even a player who I kind of give credit to as being aggressive, as we've talked about previously, is like. Whenever we try and give people credit for having bluffs in their range, like more often than not, they just have the goods anyway when they like bet huge on river.
Yeah, I just don't see like players so rarely overbet river though. So,
yeah,
I don't know. All right,
I decide to bet here against everything that you said, and I probably could go smaller here. I make it kind of a chunky bet. I bet 115, which is 40% ish pot.
I don't hate it. I mean, you're just saying you have to call a jam.
Yes, I was planning on calling a jam because I do think sometimes he might like jam a set, or he can jam worse value, and but it's not great.
It's so bad for him to jam a set.
Yes,
because you have so many like ace-x in your range. Like I think jamming a set is like quite bad.
Yeah, so maybe checking back just makes more sense. But we decide to bet, and he calls pretty quickly.
Oh. Okay, well that's good.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Like I don't really know. Like again, it's kind of one of these spots where it's
I don't know. I'm like thinking about the fact that he called. I'm thinking about jamming river honestly now.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come to that, and I think the turn was really sort of the interesting decision point, because the river comes the 7 of spades.
Okay.
So we just bink, the nuts basically.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that 6-3 of spades is a better hand than me. I won't hear it.
I would like to see that in the comments. Comment below to let Josh know that 6-3 of spades is the nuts.
Well, 6-8 is even better. But anyway, he now checks to me, and I think I have a very easy jam for basically half pot.
Mm-hmm.
And he folds quickly. He folds, but this is kind of the interesting thing is he folds the 6 of diamonds face up, and he says, "I think that river saved me some money."
Wow.
So I guess the reason he didn't jam on the turn is because he is worried that like only flushes were going to call the jam.
Interesting.
Which I don't necessarily agree with. But
yeah. Wow. I don't know. I still like jamming that river on a non-spade. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there are enough hands that are not sixes. Yeah, especially once we check. I mean, especially once we check turn. I think we kind of check turn call river is sort of a better.
Yeah,
play.
but I think but given that you bet turn, the turn went bet call. And you only have like half a pot size bet behind. I think you could just rip it on the river.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because like I don't. Anyway, it was just weird because I kind of thought that he would be jamming sixes because like I thought he was like. Then this is why I say I don't think he was like a great player because I think that like he was that's definitely a pretty scared play to like not be jamming the turn there.
I think you have to just jam there.
And I did learn a little more about his looseness when he told me he had 6-8 of diamonds. He told me later, which I think I do believe. Which
he made the super straight.
Yeah, you're right on a terrible board. So just really interesting spot with these sort of like, aces that turn a straight into, and then like, it was just that sort of turn spot that was really weird. But it's possible that just checking and then planning to call rivers makes more sense and opens his range a little bit more to hands we can get value from.
Yeah, I mean, not to be results oriented, of course, but you wouldn't if you had check back turn. I don't think you were getting. He probably would have folded river to anything. So.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking is just like, well, if this guy isn't jamming a whole lot, then like I just want to get my value now and shut down like rivers where we might not be ahead of his calling range, but
I that's the thing that is such like to me it's like most of what he's calling with on the turn I feel like on the river is going to call a jam on a non-spade. So I don't know.
And that's a good point too. So maybe you may be right at that. So anyway, that's kind of an interesting 1-3 spot.
Yeah, I genuinely have no idea how you should have played that hand. Welcome to Bankroll Burners, everybody. We have no idea how to play poker hands. So.
And that should not come as any surprise if you have listened to us before.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
All right. So my next hand is not from a live game. It's from an online game. Played a little bit of 25-cent, 50-cent online this week in our online home game. And this is from a 9-handed game. And the straddle was on in this game, not the whole time. About half of the people were straddling, which was fun. Straddle does not often come on in these games, but it was lit. And we are under the gun +1, so we are next act after the straddle in this 9-handed game. We are 124 effective with the main villain, so 124 blinds effective with the straddle. And we look down, or look on screen at 8 of clubs, 8 of diamonds, which is a pretty easy open. I make it $3. And folds all the way around to button, who calls. Small blind folds, big blind calls, and the straddler completes.
Oof. So a lot of customers, and I think 8s is probably right on the cusp of what. Well, I guess with the straddle on, we're probably opening a little bit wider in terms of pairs. In an unstraddled pot, I think 8s are like kind of the bottom of the must open range from under the gun.
Yeah, I mean, but in a game like this where it's expected of you to be a bit more actiony. I'm never folding. Like, I mean, I'll probably fold like 4s under the gun, but I feel like I have to open like 5s plus just to, I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm sitting playing with like a bunch of nits in 2-5, yeah, I can fold 7s under the gun, but that's rarely the case. I don't enjoy being in those games anyway. So.
And you can always, like limp deuces through 4s if you want to like play more hands, and if the table's not super duper actiony.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, because you can call 1 raise with those hands, but can't really stand a squeeze. Like at a table where you're not going to see a lot of raising and 3-bets, I think open limping, low pocket pairs, and also at tables that won't actually catch on, that like the only hands that you're open limping are deuces through 4s.
Yeah, that's very true. People are more observant than you think, though. So
yeah, that's sure.
I do go ahead and open this up. We're about $12 to a flop here.
Yep.
And the main villain in the hand is the straddle. So a bit of background on the straddle. He is a weak, tight player. I have been bullying him. I have been opening absolute trash as 3-bets over his opens, and he was folding a lot. And he eventually caught on that I was doing this and started to play back at me a little bit. So that's some relevant context in this hand. So.
Okay.
So the flop comes Jack of Hearts, 10 of Diamonds, 8 of Spades.
Nice. So we flop bottom set.
Yes, in a multi-way pot on a wet board.
Yeah.
A very wet board. There is no flush draw, for what it's worth. There are, of course, several possible straights, all of which are in the villain's ranges. All of the villains can have any of the straights, I would say.
Yep.
Probably nobody here has a better set, though, given how these people are very 3-bet happy in these games. So.
Yeah, although it's worth noting that 10s are probably right on the edge of a 3-bet range when you're 3-betting under the gun.
That's true.
So
I would say Button, who is a decent-ish player, could potentially have 10s here. So that's a fair point. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and bet this board.
Yeah, so it checks to you.
Yes, it checks to me. And I just think that it's a criminal to let a card come off here. I actually think my opponents are going to connect with this board in a variety of ways. So I decided to take a rather large sizing, which I don't often do in 4-way pots, but I think it's warranted given the board texture. So I go ahead and bet $8 for 2/3.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I mean, I think I think, as we've mentioned before, you can always, there is a school of thought that says, especially in low stakes live poker, which this is not, but is kind of the similar sort of game, that you can polarize more multi-way, where you take larger sizings more often and you bet a slimmer range of hands where you're really betting your best value and your bluffs and your best bluffs and because it's likely that at least one opponent has connected with a board like this and will call a larger sizing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do generally like to bet smaller multi-way anyway. Like I try not to bet a large volume of hands multi-way, but even so, I do tend to take a smaller sizing just because all we're trying to do in multi-way pots a lot of times with a bet is deny equity from a lot of hands, and we just don't need to bet that large to get those like crappier hands to fold. Especially if they understand multi-way responsibility a little bit,
which most people don't, and that's why I would say more live than here, because these games I think you're probably more right where players are going to be folding a lot more multi-way. Like players will probably fold 9x some amount of the time, or 7x or queen x, like with people to act behind. Because like if you're second to act with like I don't know 9-6 suited here, like you're not gonna really want to call.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because you're open ended, but I think like a much clearer fold is obviously like 7x or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with a 9, I don't know. Maybe I'm too loose, but I might call with a 9.
Whereas live, I mean, people are going to call you with a 7, with a queen, with all sorts of stuff, and so that's kind of, I think, another reason why you can just bet large and get the value.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we bet big here, which I do like and kind of understand. I mean, we have a set. Let's put money in.
Yep. And we get called by the big blind and the straddle. So the button fold.
Okay.
And the turn now. So the turn now is the ace of spades. So we have Jack of Hearts, 10 of diamonds, 8 of spades, ace of spades. The pot is right around $36. And it checks to me. And what are you doing here, given stack depths and such?
Well, we have a ton behind. I think I still want to be betting here. Maybe we bet a little bit smaller. Because, I mean, it's really interesting board because it's a card that overall favors our range, but at the same time, either of these players can have King Queen for sure. Like, King Queen is like an easy continue on the flop. Mm-hmm. Like, makes, obviously binks here, and that's definitely something I'm a little concerned about. Like, that's definitely one of the key draws that has made it, but also now there's a second flush draw. The ace can also
help. First flush draw. It's a first flush draw.
Yeah, you're right. There's a second card to a flush draw, and the ace can interact with our opponent's like value ranges in ways that are much more favorable to us, where they might have like ace jack or ace 9 or ace 10, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's all fair. I personally thought that I had the best hand here often enough that I was my desire was to go for stacks, given this set. And I told you I've been trying to value bet thinly more. So yeah. I'm like thinking like, man, I want money in this pot. So I took a sizing which I really regretted. I actually bet $22, and I wish I had sized up to like 26. Subtle thing, but. Unfortunately, like now we have a little more than a pot size bet left.
If we get called by one player?
Yeah, correct. Versus, we would have a little less than a pot size bet left if we had sized up a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I do think we probably have the best hand often enough, and we only started the hand. I think something that's important to contextualize that I still struggle with is we did only start the hand a little over 100 big blinds deep, effectively, with the straddle. And right. So, playing for stacks with the set makes a lot more sense than if we had started with like $250 and then we took like a pot size bet here with plans to like just try and continue to pile money in. Like that starts to lose a bit of credence,
right.
As we get deeper. But only 100 big blinds deep, even though it's multi-way. I mean, it can't be bad to be like trying to shovel the money in when we hit the set.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think if we were deeper, this would be questionable play on my part. But yes, given that we're about a little over 100 big blinds effective to start the hand. So I go ahead and bet 22. We do get called by the straddle, but the big blind gets out of the way.
Cool. Okay. So I see your point because now we've got about 80 in the pot and it looks like we've got about 90 left behind.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, a little bit of a mistake on my part.
And if we were deeper, I don't mind betting still on this turn, but I might just go on the smaller side where we have sort of room to, because we can still, I think, bet call the turn, but if we're deeper, we might need to like evaluate the river a little bit more and want to play across 3 streets.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I don't know if we're super deep, I don't even know if I hate checking here, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially because especially as we get deeper, we do need to care a lot more about protecting our checking range and things like that. So
that's true, but it still might. I mean, we still beat like everything except King Queen, I guess, and a flopped straight. Like, sure. Yep. So especially from the straddle, who is the villain here. So fair enough.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we bet call. River now is a brick. It's the 5 of clubs.
Awesome.
The straddle now checks. And then says something, and I start to think, I'm like, can I get away with overbet jamming for value here? Are there enough worse hands to call? Like, I'm like, did I really just screw myself? Do I have to take a small sizing? Like, I'm thinking, and he just goes, come on, bet. He says that in the chat. And I was like, all right, well, fine. So I just go all in. And the big blind who folded writes, he did indeed bet, which I thought was pretty good.
Very funny.
Yeah. So anyway, villain tanks for a while.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, before you go on to his ultimate decision, I mean, it's so interesting because like the ace does interact with like his range in a way where like he can make top pair or 2 pair a decent amount of the time. And like the only hands again we need to worry about are like King Queen, Queen 9, and 9-7 suited, which is right. Not a huge amount of hands, and like he could definitely have like Jack 10 here, like probably all combos of Jack 10
Sure.
All combos of like ace jack, like possibly some ace 10 that decided to get sticky and overcall the flop. So
Yep.
I mean, we probably are ahead of like his range where he's probably not defending with all 7-9 or all queen 9.
Right. No, I think for sure, like, there's no question that we should be betting for value here. It's like, the question is like, can we get away with an overbet, or do we need to do something more reasonable, like, bet 2/3, and then obviously call it jam. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but he made it easy for me.
Yeah, I mean, if he starts tanking, also, like, then we're like fist pumping and being like, please call, please call, please call.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, when he's just like, "Oh, bet, go on, bet," I was like, "Yeah, sure, man, I'll bet." So I put it in my stack. He tanks, and then eventually clicks call, and we never see what he has, but he leaves the table. So,
So I mean, I'd have to guess he had like either Jack 10 or like ace some. I would bet he had like 2-pair.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, 2-pair, I feel like he might call a bit quicker if he thinks I'm full of crap and I've been bullying him all day, but I don't know.
Maybe there's just so many value combos. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, so nice. I mean, we got the maximum, but good
Yeah.
point on the turn that we could have bet a little bit bigger and set up an actual pot size jam that's a lot easier than like overbetting. But it's not a huge overbet either. I mean, it's like 1.1. So
No. I mean, it's not like crazy, like insanely polarizing bet or something. I just prefer to give my opponents like a slightly better price on the call. Obviously for balance purposes, I don't want it to be too good of a price, but anyway. I just try to be careful with overbetting and not being unbalanced with my overbets because it's very easy to only overbet for value. So, anyway.
all right, well, this is a hand I'm quite excited about.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure that I did not play it correctly, but it was certainly a fun hand. And in this hand, it's another 1-3 hand. The villain in this hand is going to be about 385 effective. There's no straddle on, so it's 130-ish big blinds deep. The villain in this hand was an older gentleman who was one of my favorite types of poker player, which is the active older gentleman. Because OMCs, as we all know, suck to play against. When you sit down with an old guy, you kind of start to think, oh man, I don't want to be at a table with this individual. Then once they start raising, you're like, well, this is great. And this guy was quite active. He was raising a lot. It was quite fun to see. Like, he was winning a bunch of pots. I've been playing with a number of this type of player, which is just wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you see like an old guy who can run some sick bluffs. That's like the best. So.
Yeah. Exactly. So I am in the low jack in this hand. It folds to me, which is a first. And we look down at red jacks.
Nice.
So we're going to raise it up. I will have to come up with a trademark name for them like everyone else. So we raised to 15, which I think is pretty standard open for this game.
Okay.
It folds to the button, who is this villain, and he makes it 45.
Oh wow, you get 3-bet.
Yeah, and he hadn't been 3-betting a whole lot. I hadn't really seen him get the opportunity. Is probably a large part of it.
Yeah, that's the thing about these games. Like, I remember when I first started trying to open up my 3-betting range, I just was like, wow, I literally can never 3-bet because no one ever opens the pot.
Well, and then you realize if no one ever opens the pot, that like opening up the 3-betting range is a bad idea because that means they're only opening like their top hands.
Well, but then again, I don't know that it really does mean that because I see people open the stupidest crap, especially at these levels. Like they'll limp 100 pots and they'll be like 3-6 suited.
It's weird. I saw a guy do exactly that. Who had like 80% VPIP. He was just calling. He raised and everyone folded and he showed 9 deuce of hearts.
Right.
And I was like, well, okay, if that's the hand that you decide to open, like, bully for you, right? But anyway, in this case, it folds back to me, and I think I just have a square call here with jacks.
Yeah, you're never getting called by worse if you 4-bet. I mean, I guess you get called by ace king. That's about it.
Okay, well, that's yeah, we can absolutely get called by ace king, but I think in general, calling here just makes the most sense with jacks.
I really don't ever like to play jacks as a 4-bet unless I'm super deep or
Super
I'm
shallow.
like cold or super deep, super shallow, or cold 4-betting. But other than that, I tend to not like to 4-bet jacks.
Yeah, totally fair. And the flop, so we're off to a flop, which comes out an interesting one. It's ace of diamonds, ace of hearts, 10 of diamonds.
Okay.
So there's an overcard, but we have jacks. We have a reasonably strong hand. The two aces obviously make it less likely he's got an ace. He can still have a pair better than ours. We have a diamond.
What do you think this sort of player is 3-betting? I mean, for sure, like, obviously kings and aces, obviously, but queens sounds like probably yes.
Yep, I think queens.
Do you think tens?
Probably not. I rarely see tens 3-bet.
Okay.
Which is weird.
Then, like, ace king seems like probably ace queen. Old guys hate ace.
Maybe ace queen, I don't know. And then he definitely, like, it's definitely possible that he just has some random 3-bets. Like, as you've said, like, in these live games, you just never know when people have, like, a favorite hand, or they just think, oh, enough of this guy raising, I'm going to 3-bet without really any regard for their actual hand.
Yep, totally. So, like, at this point, you're hoping that I mean, if his range was literally queens, kings, aces, ace king, and ace queen, I mean, you're drawing pretty slim. So at this point, you're kind of hoping you're up against maybe either king queen suited if he's doing it with that, or like a spaz, basically.
Yes, king queen suited, which is possible. King queen suited, or just like some like suited connectors maybe if he happened to hit a diamond draw. Like, I do have the jack of diamonds. It's worth noting, so I'm blocking some of those diamond draw hands. Sure. But when I check, he actually checks it back.
Okay, that could be good.
I suspect that's good. He's definitely been betting a good amount when he had it. So I'm kind of thinking it's more likely he's got something like kings, queens, king, queen, one of those hands. Probably not aces or ace king. I guess maybe exactly aces.
Yeah, maybe he checks back.
But probably not ace king.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's fair. And I think, there's definitely some bluffing opportunities if he does have queens or kings.
And I mean, I know I should be leading this board, right, all the time.
Yeah.
So there's mistake number one. Okay, so that's the flop, and the turn now comes the 3 of hearts, which does bring a second flush draw. We've got red jacks, so we are blocking both of them. And what do you like here? Do you think we continue to do you think we'd like check call the street? Do you like trying to get some value if we're up against a hand that's worse?
What worse hand are we up against that's going to call except exactly like king queen suited?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much king queen suited. Maybe a diamond or heart draw if he does have like suited connectors. Yeah,
if he's good enough to 3-bet it, suited connectors, though, he might be good enough to raise. Like, if he picks up hearts here, he might be good enough to raise. Because if you're targeting king queen suited, you're going to make a small bet, right? He's trying to get called by a gutter.
Yep.
So he might have the wisdom to raise you here if he is good enough. If he is in fact good enough to 3-bet suited connectors, he may be good enough to raise you with them when he picks up a draw.
Yeah, I mean, when we really break down his range, I probably just like checking here again.
Agreed. I like check evaluate.
Possibly. Yeah, like probably can check call a small bet.
I mean, yeah, I might also look to possibly, I don't know. I feel like turning our hand into a bluff is probably a bit silly at this point, but maybe not. Depends what he does. What does he do?
Well, so I actually decide to bet here.
Oh, okay.
Despite, again, I kind of do like a check here, I think, after talking about it, but I decide to bet, and I do go small. I bet 30 into about 90.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't think too long and calls.
Interesting. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think we're value owning ourselves against kings and queens so much with this bet.
Right.
Because he's just never going to fold those hands, particularly to the small sizing. And he has way more kings and queens than he has king queen suited. He has 12 combos of kings and queens and 4 combos of king queen suited. So, I don't know. Seems a little thin.
So, the river now is going to come a pretty interesting card. It's going to come the King of Diamonds. So the front door flush draw gets in. This is obviously a card that smashes his range a lot more than mine.
Yeah.
So what do you think here?
With kings. I like probably checking, and I think
Is this just a straightforward check fold?
no. I mean, we have we have an interesting bluffing candidate if he bets small. If he bets quite large, I'm not sure because first of all, I don't know if we have the fold equity with the stack depths. I mean, what's in the pot now?
So there's 150 in the pot, and there's about 300-ish behind.
Yeah, so we for sure don't have the fold equity if he bets large. If he bets really small, we might be able to get away with some shenanigans.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I also think I just also think that a lot of players like this are going to vary their bet size quite a bit based on the strength of their hand, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing either. Where if he's got a one pair hand like King Queen, or maybe even pocket queens, he might elect to take a smaller sizing versus if he bets big, he's probably got something. But that he doesn't want to fold.
A good old boat.
Yeah. A boat. Maybe he's connected on a flush somehow. Obviously, we have the Jack of Diamonds, so it's difficult, but possible. But I agree. I definitely want to start with the check, evaluate. So we do check, and he bets 75. So a good old half pot size bet.
Okay. So now there's 225 in the pot, and we have, how much did you say behind?
About 300 before that, so 225 on top.
So, yeah, so if we jam here, he's going to get, I mean, he's not even, let's see, the pot would, if we jam here, it would be 525 in the pot, and he'd have to call 225, is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, so he's going to get, a little better than 2-1, which is, bad enough odds to induce a fold.
Yeah, and the thing is, I just think when he bets 75, which is half pot, I think he never has an ace, especially once he checks back flop. And then I also have the jack, pocket jacks with the Jack of Diamonds just seems like a great bluff candidate. Because, first of all, we're not really beating anything he's taking this way for value, right? If we had pocket queens, maybe we're beating pocket jacks, for example, because it's really queens and jacks. Because blocking queen jack and blocking the flush are the two things that we really want to be doing. I think he pretty much never has an ace, so I'm just repping, and my range is fairly uncapped if I jam, because I could probably play some hands this way as a check jam for value because the king is so much better for him. Maybe probably queen jack or a flush.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it at all. I think that I think that if you're gonna bluff, this is probably the best possible hand, right? What better bluff candidate do you even have?
Yeah, and I mean, again, and it's also just he just doesn't have an ace here, right? He just can't have an ace or pocket kings because
he could have a terrible ace.
Yeah,
he could have ace 5 suited.
But a terrible ace might not might fold.
Agreed.
Because I'm repping better than a terrible ace. Nothing.
I think that he never has anything here that is excited about your jam, pretty much.
Unless he's trapping with something silly.
With a monster. If he has literally pocket aces.
Or ace 10 is probably one that he might check back sometimes, right? If he has ace 10 suited.
Yeah, that's true as well. So I think that those are hands you were losing to, but I think he has way more hands. He has king queen. He has, let's say, ace 5 suited. He probably has, he might have some queens. I guess he doesn't have that many thin value bets here. Thinking about it, he doesn't have that many hands that are definitely gonna fold. But he also he only has 3 combos that are super value-y that he might take this way. So I don't know. I mean, I like it.
Yeah, well, I do jam. I decided to go for it. I just think I kind of because when I checked, I was oh, this card sucks for me. I probably have to check fold. And then he bet 75, and I was wow, that's not a lot. I can probably just get him to fold. And I wasn't even thinking really in the moment. And I did think oh, I have good blockers. I wasn't really thinking about all the different combos, which I probably should have that he could have. But I was basically thinking he should really never have an ace here. And this sizing kind of means he doesn't have pocket kings, and I'm double blocking queen jack, and I'm blocking the flush. So I just think this bluff works so often that that I can do it. And as I jam, he goes very deep into the tank. Like, he really thinks it over for a couple minutes and eventually dejectedly folds.
Nice.
So we do get it through. I have to assume that he folded better when he took a while to make the fold.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he had, like, 9s or something weird, I can't imagine.
Yeah, right. Or, like, a 10, right? Like, he's never got, like, Jack 10 or Queen 10.
Yeah.
Probably, so... Kind of an interesting hand there. One that I was, in the moment especially, I was feeling very proud of. I was like, oh, I'm glad I found that line. I feel like, sometimes definitely a problem that I have playing poker is sometimes when I'm kind of sitting there, I can go into autopilot mode, and that's, like, no good. When if I, like, take a second and think about it, you can kind of find lines that might be exploitative or at least this wasn't intuitive to me of, like, turning the jacks into a bluff. But once I thought about it, I think for all the reasons you outlined, just makes a lot of sense to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really good. And one thing that I've heard is, like, the best check raise bluff candidates are hands that have some showdown value, but once your opponent bets, like, are not going to be good. So, like, jacks is that.
Right, I mean, that's a good point, because if he actually goes check, we can probably win some amount of the time. Like, if he does show up with, like, a, Jack 10 suited, or 10-9 suited, or pocket 9s, or something like that, where we're ahead of some of his check back range, but we're not ahead of any of his betting range. And to your point, if he bet, like, 150, snap fold. Like, I'm never gonna try and make a bluff there, and I just beat none of his betting range.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think this is really, really, really well played. Unusually well played.
I had to highlight this one so I could feel better about than blowing my whole stack to a couple tough hands.
Yeah, you never want to blow your whole stack to a tough hand, Josh.
Well, hey, I didn't go broke in a limped pot.
That's good. Well, I guess that about wraps it up, folks. Thanks so much for joining us for another hour of potentially interesting poker hands played badly by potentially interesting people.
Yeah, we appreciate you tuning in as always. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, press all the buttons to make numbers go up.
Yeah, please let us know in the comments how we could have played the hand better, or how this show could be better, because our best suggestions come from you, the viewers. So
we didn't even consider putting hand histories on until multiple people practically begged us.
Right. So and also the video thing that came from Oth. That was his suggestion we had on the show a few episodes back. So, anywho, everybody, pleasure as always. We'll see you later.
Have a good night.